Someone who's going to be working on a couple of drinks.
They do it all the time, so why?
I know.
Why do you think we watermark it?
But we don't do that.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, because people put it on YouTube and it just spreads.
I didn't know what
Spreads everywhere.
It's probably not the right term.
Everybody's here? Everybody's here.
Everybody's ready?
Yeah.
Everybody's ready. Unless you want to wait 10 minutes. All right, you can get here. Try to stall.
You did, I can vouch.
We'll do a quick sound check, focus check.
No discretion.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Sharice didn't show it. Sharice communicated with her.
Tom, let them know press conference ready to start.
I did.
You did?
Yeah. Throw it in for a minute by minute. Press conference started. Right.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it is for us. It's more about us. You know, we're up for 2 minutes. What's going to happen?
I'm trying to keep it.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Right. Yeah.
Next minute, see this 4645 denies saying.
Denies admitting, we follow your minute by minute.
Nobody backs him up.
We are really Alvin, and I just finished math, third grade social studies. Where we had to build the state of Colorado. I know this is really good sports. No, they haven't started. They're about to. Everybody here, so. Not bad. Okay, wait, I'll be able to pull this number out. Okay? All right, bye. Yes. Yes. Not so much when it's on top, but but
That's the one I got. We got there probably after Alex Trump, I was going a little red. Yeah. We drove by, we were heading to the other. I thought you were saying you come to that. Yeah, we pulled in right. We were coming back to the scene and we saw the cops right behind us. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we were there after the party. Yeah, we were at the after, we didn't get you that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got a shot of the ambulance leaving.
And then I went up to the Microsoft and I did shoot my Yeah. It's a little comic.
Yeah, it's always
There's a bunch of old people.
Hey, man, how you doing?
That was so hateful, Melvin.
I was kind of taming
It's like old home week here, isn't it? Is this all? Is this all?
No.
Oh, most of us.
With Pimentel being the new GM over at 11, he came to 11 after we left, I think.
Yeah, he was not there. I was there under what? Oh, Walker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we
Here
go.
we go.
You fired up?
We hot, we ready to go? All right. Everybody got their phones off? All right. At approximately 6:45 a.m. this morning, DeKalb County police officers responded to a reported home invasion armed robbery at the Colony Ridge Apartments on Glenwood Road. As officers approached the scene and location, they were fired upon by what we know right now to be two known suspects. And these suspects fired upon our officers with automatic assault rifles. Two officers were struck by gunfire. One was struck in the thigh, another was struck in the calf. One suspect, a 39-year-old male, was struck in exchange of gunfire and transported to an area hospital in critical condition. After an extensive ground search, utilizing K-9, aerial support, and support from the Sheriff's Office, Marshal's Office, Georgia State Police, Fulton County Police, ATF, and Doraville, and Atlanta, the second suspect was caught without further incident. He's a 29-year-old male and was taken into custody after being located by one of Doraville police officer K-9s. He was transported to an area hospital for evaluations of his injuries. At a minimum, the suspect faces charges of home invasion, armed robbery, aggravated assault on a police officer. Officer Devin Perry was shot in the calf and has been released from the hospital. He's 29 years of age and has been on the department for 4 years. Officer Tony Luong was shot in the thigh and has been in surgery. He is 26 years of age and has been on the department for approximately 1 year. This event this morning that occurred is a very horrendous one, but it also reminds us of the fact of the police officers in this community and across this country do a very, very dangerous job each and every day. And to come up under the attack of assault rifles is something I think that we all need to give a great deal of thought to, is that officers, particularly in this community, DeKalb County, on this day, lives were threatened. It's only by the grace of God that it could have been worse. And we're thankful that both of them are going to recover from their injuries. But I think it's important to note here that we have to support our law enforcement, support our officers as well too, because they do a very dangerous job. And I also want to thank again the support of all our partners throughout this community: Atlanta Police, ATF, FBI, Doraville Police. Every agency in this community and around this community responded as we do when we have these types of incidents to occur. What I'd like to do is take a few moments to answer any questions that you have. Some of your questions, if I cannot answer them, I will simply say to you, it is currently under investigation, end of story, period. So, Visser.
Do we have any idea why one apartment was targeted for the armed robbery?
We have reason to believe, and that's still part of the investigation, but I answer to you the best I can, is that location at that apartment, we suspect at this point may have had some other activities going on inside. So that is still yet to be determined, and I don't want to make any concrete statements until we know exactly more. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Like drug activities, or can you elaborate?
I can't say anything more specific than that. Yes, sir.
2 questions. Were the weapons recovered that the assailants had? And secondly, the second suspect that you arrested in the cemetery, was that man hit with gunfire, or was he bitten by the dogs? We understand he was bleeding.
All the above. All the above, yes. He is the second suspect in this. He had received gunfire in exchange with our officers, and he tried to run from the scene once the officers found him, and he was bit by a canine dog.
Was he wounded by a bullet, though? Was he wounded in the gun?
He was wounded in the gunfire with our officers. Okay. Yes, he was.
Any other questions about the guns, the rifles being recovered?
We have recovered the weapons. Yes.
Two
Real quick.
questions.
One question. Go ahead. Give me one question at a time.
You mentioned the charges against the second suspect. Will the first suspect who was wounded also be charged?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
With what crimes?
Home invasion and armed robbery.
Identical charges for both?
Yes, same charges for both.
Did both suspects have weapons and fire shots at your office?
We believe that they did. Certainly the one with the assault rifle. We know for a fact that he did fire upon the officers. As far as we know, both subjects fired up on officers when officers were approaching the scene.
Can you clarify exactly where he was found? We've heard that there was a sighting of him running across the
Which person you're talking about?
The second one. and that he was found near a creek or a cemetery. Can you describe it?
He ran a distance from the location of where the shooting took place, and he did get over to the other side of the expressway where he was subsequently found by K-9. There was a couple questions over here.
Can you talk about the crime in this neighborhood and how it compares to other parts of the county?
Well, I mean, we certainly have certain areas in and around the county that more high crime areas than others. This is one of our areas, of course, in which, if you remember 7, 8 years ago, not very far from there, we lost 2 police officers in the line of duty as well, too, in very close proximity to this same apartment complex.
What can you tell us about the suspects? Have they been on your radar before?
No, they have not, far as we know. I don't know that much about it. But what I will say is this, they certainly, from what we can gather so far right now, both of them were very much armed. And when officers arrived to that scene, and as officers were pulling up out of their vehicles, these gentlemen were coming out of the apartment and fired directly upon officers deliberately. And officers returned fire, and of course, we had 2 officers that were injured.
Did they both have assault rifles, and was the second guy that you arrested, was he shot at the first scene of the first shooting, or was he shot out by the cemetery?
We're still working that through, but both of them in exchange of gunfire. All the gunfire occurred there at the scene in that moment.
So there wasn't any gunfire?
So there was no secondary gunfire out at the cemetery.
Okay.
No,
Did
it was
they both
not.
have assault rifles or not?
We know we have in possession at least 1 assault rifle and 1 small arms. 1 or 2 other questions.
You
Yes, sir.
mentioned assault rifle and fully automatic. I just want to be very specific about what we're talking about.
AK-47,
And it was a fully automatic weapon?
fully automatic weapon.
Did any of them were they legally allowed to possess it? Did they have
I could only imagine they probably were not. Next question, please. Next question. Yes.
Knowing that the crime rate in this neighborhood and the history of this neighborhood, is there anything different that you tell your officers or that they try to do when they respond to calls?
They were responding to a home invasion in progress. And if I understand, that's how the call came in. So there were a number of officers that were responded.
But you know that this is a highly violent area, and these are fairly young officers to the police force. Any concerns about sending them in first?
Well, we don't stop and check to see how many years you got on the job. We send in officers as they're dispatched. They all are very well trained. They all are very well equipped. They knew the community in which they work in. They work in this community each and every day. So they understand where those hot spots are more so than we do, who are not in there on a daily basis, right? So when they responded, they did respond in numbers. However, let's not overlook the fact that when they responded to that scene and exited their vehicles, they were fired upon with assault rifles.
Chief,
1 or 2 more questions.
Chief, I just
Right
want-
here.
With suspects in a vehicle, and if so, did you search the vehicle? Did you find anything in the vehicle?
Well, that's still part of the investigation, and we're still looking into that to determine what else may come out of this for us as well, too. Yes, sir.
Did they get in the vest? Did they take any rounds in the vest?
Not that I'm aware of, but here again, what we do know is that officers did take a round. 1 officer did take a round in the thigh, and the other as well, too, in a foot. Yes, sir.
So did they get hit immediately after exiting the vehicle?
Yes, sir. Within seconds of their exiting their vehicles, there was an exchange of gunfire.
Are you looking for additional suspects, or are you just looking for 2 guys?
Well, there's still an ongoing investigation. We still want to question these suspects, and certainly we still want to question our officers as well, too, as they continue to recover. And we're continuing witnesses and interviewing them as well. Yes,
How
sir.
many rounds were fired total? You said that, with these AK-47, how many rounds were fired?
I can't tell you exactly, but I can only imagine there probably was a volley of gunfire and an exchange of gunfire at that scene. So a number of rounds were fired, both from the subjects and our officers returning fire, defending themselves as well, too.
Do you describe this as an ambush of your office?
I wouldn't go as far to call it that, but what I will call it is very daring on their part to exit that apartment and see officers arriving to that scene, and they fire upon those officers. I cannot find words to describe what must have been going through those officers' mind. And to ride up on that scene, to come up on that scene, and soon as they exit their vehicles, they were fired upon. But they did what they needed to do to protect themselves and protect this community as well, too. And we had 2 officers in this community who were shot and severely injured this morning. So I think it's important for all of us as a community to note the fact, the work that they do and the courageousness in which they did this job is very important to the safety of this community.
Arrested by any chance?
What's that again,
Were
Bishop?
you arrested, the people that were victims of the home invasion, were they arrested?
We don't know. Well, we don't know yet whether they're going to be arrested or not. Here again, Bishop, this is still part of the ongoing investigation, and we have to determine what is it about that resident that sent these guys there at that time this morning.
Who called in the police?
One at a time, please.
How many people were inside the home? Can you tell us more about what, I know you said there was activity inside, but what transpired inside the home? And did
Don't know.
anybody get injured?
I really don't know. No one inside the resident was hurt. But I can't tell you with any specifics at this point, because here again, it's an ongoing investigation. And I appreciate you asking the question in a very different kind of way, but nothing has changed. It's still under investigation.
Who
Yes, sir.
called police?
I'm not certain where that call came from. It may have come from inside the home. We're still trying to figure that out. And once we get that, we'll get that to you. Yes, sir.
Can you, what are the names of the suspects you're releasing?
We're going to hold on to those names right now because, one, we need to make sure that we do a thorough and complete investigation, and number two, we want to make sure that any next of kin that they have are notified as well, too.
They're both alive, though, correct?
They both are alive, yes.
The one was 28, how old was the other?
I'm not sure the age, of the other one. Let me see here. 27 years of age. Right.
Can you spell the name of your officers? I'm not personally familiar.
We'll get that to you right after this.
Clarify those ages, we originally had 39 and 59.
Yes, first suspect is 39 years of age, and the second that we called in the wood line, he's 27 years of age.
Can you say where the first suspect was shot, the one that's in critical condition, where are his injuries?
He was shot at a number of locations across his upper torso, from what I understand, and he's currently in surgery at this time.
Did the officers take cover behind the patrol car, or I mean, how did it unfold?
Well, I can't tell you specifically how it unfolds. I think a lot of that is going to come out. A lot of it will come out in the investigation, but here's what we do know, is that when those officers exited their vehicle, when they arrived at the scene of that home invasion, these suspects were exiting the residence, and they fired upon these officers. And so it was a shootout face-to-face between officers and the bad guys. 2 of our officers were injured, 2 bad guys were shot and were subsequently taken into custody. One more question, guys, and we're going to shut it down.
Can you tell me more about the 27-year-old suspect and his injuries? You said he was transported for evaluation. He was shot as well.
He was shot in upper torso as well, too, and also the lower extremities. I think he took 1 or 2 rounds. Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Alexander, I'm curious, I know you guys were all focused on the search, focused on solving the crime, but I'm wondering, was there just any underlying thoughts about Barker and Brian and what happened here 7 years ago, and did that factor up or ramp up at all just the intensity, remembering what happened to those 2 officers?
Well, you know, certainly I'm quite sure when that call for help first went out that officers were down. For many of those officers who had been around this department for a long period of time, some of them standing behind me, both in DeKalb and outside of DeKalb, and familiar with that area, I'm quite sure it did bring up a lot of feelings of what occurred not too many years ago, where we lost 2 officers just in close proximity to that same location as well, too. So anytime that a police officer is shot and injured in the line of duty, it's not just an attack upon that police officer, it's an attack upon all of us. And these officers did what they had to do to protect each other this morning. And their being there and they stopping and subsequently apprehending both of these subjects may have in all likelihood stop further mayhem down the road of someone else being hurt and killed. So that's why I think it's very clearly important to note in your reporting here today of the heroism of all those men and women that responded to that scene this morning, and also all the law enforcement across this entire metro region that came together and responded, and that include our fire services as well too, and a host of people throughout the community who were calling, who were concerned, and who were keeping us in their prayers. Thank you all very much. As we gather more information, we'll share it with you. Thank you.
Were there 2 officers at the scene? I'm sorry, were there 2 officers at the scene?
No, there were more officers.
There were more.
Yeah, there were about 5 or 6 officers that responded initially.
the officers that were here, they were working off duty, the officers involved today, do they work off duty at all?
No, they were
Are
on
there
duty.
any-
They
I
were
mean,
on
but
duty.
do they work off duty?
Oh, I don't
They
know.
Do
I
any
don't.
of your officers continue to work off duty at that time?
Not that I'm aware of, we can find that out. We'll find out. I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shoulder left.